Hi, Limit Break Overdrive with a build guide for Path of Exile's upcoming league, Scourge League. This build is gonna be about Lacerate Bleed Gladiator. This is what I'm gonna start the league with, as I've played it for like 4 last league and it's pretty reliable. It's both tanky and has somewhat good damage, especially for mapping. And since this is what my league starter skull is, then I felt this was perfect. So a little bit of history about this build. I first played the build, I think it was 4 or 5 leagues ago, when Steel Mage actually made a build guide for Zizran. And since I always play melee builds, I was really excited about that. So I tried the build and, well, it's really good. And since then I've played it almost every single league. So I just remade it with the new skill tree and changed some things around, mainly about equipment, just so it's pretty cheap since I'm an SSF player. So it's gonna be easier to just gear and farm currency to make other builds later on in the league. So I'm gonna first show some gameplay while I'm talking about the gear and the build and all, and then we're gonna go into the POB for more detail. Don't forget, you need the community fork of POB to be able to open the build guide. Okay, for the gameplay, the way the build plays, it's pretty straightforward. You're basically using right click with Lacerate, you kill monsters that way. You get Blood Rage, you just basically start Blood Rage at the start of the map and you forget about it. So that gives you your Frenzy charges, as well as Leech. You use your movement skill. In the gameplay you're seeing right now, I'm using Leaf Slam to gain Fortify effect. But I'm pretty sure this is not gonna work this league because of the nerf to Fortify. You basically need to build your fortification, and they build faster the more damage you deal, so it might not be the best. So I'm still gonna use Leap Slam with faster attacks, because I prefer that over Dash and Second Wind, but both are pretty viable movement skills. You can also use Vulnerability Curse until you get your Curse Ring, just to get more damage against bosses. Other than that, you don't really have much to do, you just run around and kill things, and with the really nice bleed explosion, so pretty normal build. So now we're gonna switch to the POB section of the build. So this is what the POB looks like in the end game when you have your cluster jewels, but I included leveling trees every 10 points. I made a new level tree including the labyrinth, and none of that is rock solid. You don't really have to follow all the nodes to the letter. The only things that really matters are these 3 keystones, which are Resolute Technique, Crimson Dance, and Versatile Combatant. And everything is in the nodes. Made plenty of nodes, but basically you try to get Versatile Combatant once you have 75 attack block, so you get 50 spell block and 50 attack block. You take Crimson Dance as soon as you get around 85 bleed chance, usually when you get first lab, since this Ascendancy Blood in the Eyes gives you 50% chance to cause bleeding, so with that you're pretty good to go. What Crimson Dance does is that you can get up to 8 bleed stack on the enemy, but they deal less damage. So if you don't have enough bleed chance, it's kind of lowering your damage, so better to wait there. And you try to get Resolute Technique at around the same time you get to normal Labyrinth, because your accuracy is starting to decrease at around that. Another note I had is the Cleaving Cluster. I take this cluster here quite late actually. Don't mind the Anoint. Usually you go and take Cleaving with an Axe Mastery. which gives you bleeding, inflict damage 15% faster. I take it quite late, because with this node that gives damage, and this node, plus the bleeding node, I feel I have enough damage, and I'd rather go to get this node, and life, and this node, so... But you can take this one first, and take the life later. It doesn't really change much. As I said, the keystones are more important. I wanted to make a side note for the Ascendancy. Back last league and the past leagues, when we were playing this build, we were using Versatile Combatant, which was in fact only for Gladiator. Now it's on the skill tree and it's got nerfed. This was giving us 1-for-1 spell block for how much attack block we had. And now this is gone, and this node kind of blows, to be fair. Because you get, even with Versatile Combatant, you can get 60 block, but you still get 50 spell block only. And spell block is more important in my opinion, so you don't take that. You instead take Outmatch and Outlast, which gives you 10% more damage at maximum frenzy charges, and that's good damage. And you basically get Endurance and Frenzy charges while mapping, no problem. Well, more Frenzy. Endurance is with offhand, but we get Enduring Cry with Call to Arms, so no problem there. However, Painforged, I'm still on the fence about this node. Because now in 3.16 they buffed basically the block you get on shields, and it can go up to 16%. That means if you can get 70% block chance, attack and not spell, without using this node, you can ditch this node, as it's the only stats that's good for us. I mean, cannot be stunned by hits you block, it's not bad, but it's not mandatory. And instead, if you manage to get enough block without Painforged, I would take Arena Challenger to get more attack movement, attack speed per Challenger charges. Pretty good for bosses because we're in Blood Stance anyway. The only drawback with this node is while mapping you need to use Sand Stance with Blood and Sand, which we are using. So these are the notes I wanted to make about the skill tree. Other than that, I've got a section in the notes about the cluster jewels, the pros and cons. Basically, take the clusters if you can. You just lack some skill points, so you need to get really the best of the best clusters, like a large with 8 passives, medium with 4, and you could go with 2 for the life one to save 1 skill point. But I mean, 4% maximum life plus other stats is always good. This cluster is hard to roll though with Rush with Death on a life cluster, but it's really good for mapping. It gives you good survivability because you recover 1% life on kill, and since you kill packs with explosion, with bleed explosion, then you get pretty good regen. As for the items, I have an endgame set, so you can see 800k DPS against Cyrus. Since it is dot DPS, it's not bad. If you go with mapping, you can get over 1 million. But I added like the default gear, which you get in maps slowly increasing towards the endgame gear, and I might change some of that because again they changed some things with the new patch, like rings can get dot multiplier, which they couldn't before, so that would be more damage even for bleed. You can already get this on an amulet. I didn't include it because you need Delirium essence, and getting a good amulet on top of that is pretty expensive. So that covers it about the gear, except for the weapon. The weapon, I mean, it's all explained in the notes, but if you are playing Trail League or you're playing SSF and like me got lucky last league, you can drop Jack the Axe, which is really good. It's got not that high of DPS, but it gives up to 35% damage over time multiplier for bleeding, which is really good. And it gives you Thirst for Blood, which is an aura that gives you 200 life regen per bleeding enemy, which means you're practically immortal during maps. That's a really nice axe. So yeah, if you're playing Trail League, consider getting that. It's gonna be pretty helpful. We still get a good amount of life. Slightly better without clusters, but yeah. So far that's the build. As I said multiple times already, you've got notes. And I'm gonna update the POB once POB gets all the updates, because even in Pantheon, we're probably gonna take Soul of Brine King to get freeze immune. But since it's not updated in POB, then we don't get the real value. So I just put Shakari because of poison, but it might be something else just to get ailment immune basically. Same goes for the flasks. I just put random flasks because they're not updated yet. I didn't even roll a Quicksilver flask, so. But yeah, you basically try to get ailment and curse immunity on flasks and Pantheon. So mapping is, I mean, way more enjoyable. I would try to go with freeze and chill first and then curse. These are the ones that are the least enjoyable. If you're curse immune or 100% reduced curse effect, you can do temp chains map, elemental weakness maps, everything, vulnerability, and no problem there. So the only thing that's better with the no cluster tree, by the way, is the corrupted blood can be inflicted on you. We got it on the tree with this cluster, and we get max resist. But with the cluster jewels, you only need the corrupted blood jewel, and with expedition going core, with Rogue you might get this more easily than usual. So overall, this is a pretty good build. Really tanky with a block, a spell block, fortify. You can even get overcapped resistances. You got leech. You get a good chunk of life too. So pretty good for a league starter, especially since the gear is kind of easy to get, mostly rare items. So yeah, pretty excited to play this build for the 5th league in a row or something like that. So hope you enjoyed the build. I'm open to criticism, as this is the first build guide I ever do. So thanks for watching till the end of the video, and I hope to see you on the beach on the league start on the 22nd of October. Thank you.